What comes into your mind when you hear the word Africa? What image flashes when someone mentions the history of Africa? Be honest. Is it hunger? Civil wars? Children with flies on their faces? A continent waiting for donations? Or perhaps slavery, the first thing, the default identity, the never-ending tale? And what if I told you that even most Africans have the wrong answer? What if I told you that they don't know, and worse, they don't even know that they don't know? That's because when you want to rob someone of their dignity, you first erase their memory. And when you want to keep a people in chains forever, you don't need metal. You just need to deny them their history. Today, Africa is seen through a broken lens. But that lens was designed to break. The truth is, Africa is not the child of tragedy, it is the mother of civilization. Before the chains, before the gunboats, before colonization, there was glory. Long before Europe woke from the Dark Ages, the continent of Africa was a continent of kings and queens, of universities and gold, of science, mathematics, and architecture so advanced it still puzzles the modern world. Take a moment and consider the pyramids of Giza. Built over 4,000 years ago in ancient Egypt, structures so precise, aligned with stars, layered with sacred geometry, that even today's architects struggle to explain their construction. These weren't the works of savages. They were monuments of mastery. The Greeks studied in Africa. Pythagoras, Hippocrates, Plato, they all learned in Kemet, now Egypt, where knowledge had already bloomed for centuries. Africa didn't just build wonders, Africa built thought. Then there was Timbuktu, a name often mocked today, reduced to a metaphor for the middle of nowhere. But in the 14th century, Timbuktu was the beating heart of knowledge. It had one of the world's greatest universities. Scholars came from all over the world to study theology, astronomy, law, medicine. Manuscripts written in fine Arabic calligraphy contained libraries of science and law, now gathering dust in silence. And in the midst of this golden age rose a man, Mansa Musa, the emperor of the Mali Empire, the richest human being in recorded history. Yes, richer than Jeff Bezos. Richer than Elon Musk. Adjust for inflation, his wealth would surpass $400 billion. When he made his famous pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324, he took 60,000 men and gave away so much gold that it devalued the currency of Egypt for 10 years. That was Africa. And it wasn't just Mali. In present-day Zimbabwe stood the stone towers of Great Zimbabwe, a city so advanced in its design, with complex stone architecture built without mortar, that European explorers at first refused to believe that Africans built it. They claimed it must have been the work of Phoenicians or Arabs, because the lie couldn't allow African genius. In East Africa, the Swahili city-states of Kilwa, Mombasa, and Zanzibar thrived through trade with China, India, and Arabia. Their ports bustled with ships long before many European cities had docks. They traded ivory, gold, and spices. Their architecture was Islamic, their culture cosmopolitan, their power undeniable. Let's not forget the Somali empires, the Ajuran, the Adel, the Warsangali. The Ajuran Empire, for example, controlled much of the Horn of Africa and was so powerful in the 15th and 16th centuries that it defeated Portuguese invasions. They built castles, aqueducts, wells, and irrigation systems that lasted centuries. When German explorers reached Somali territories, they didn't find weakness. They found empires that were organized, militarized, and feared. In Ethiopia, the Kingdom of Aksum minted its own currency and had diplomatic relations with Rome and Byzantium. The Aksumites built towering obelisks, embraced Christianity in the 4th century, and preserved their own script, Gez, which survives to this day. In West Africa, the Songhai Empire controlled trade across the Sahara. Their navy patrolled the Niger River. Their leaders established bureaucracies and taxation systems centuries before Europe knew the concept of estatecraft. Even in southern Africa, the Mutapa Empire commanded respect and wealth through control of mineral resources. So where did this image of poverty come from? How did the world forget? The answer is simple and terrifying: it was hidden. Colonialism was not just a theft of land or people, it was a theft of memory. European colonizers redrew maps, renamed kingdoms, burned libraries, and rewrote African history to make it look like Africa had none. They replaced kings with chiefs, sovereigns with subjects, warriors with slaves. The transatlantic slave trade robbed millions of their freedom and generations of their heritage. Africans were branded not just physically, but mentally, as less than human. And when the chains were finally removed, a more subtle weapon was introduced, the pen. The education system in colonized Africa taught nothing of African greatness. Students learned about Napoleon before they heard of Shaka Zulu. They studied Shakespeare before they ever read about Sundiata. The curriculum created self-doubt. And that doubt became identity. Africans began to see themselves through foreign eyes, weak, backward, always in need of help. There's a famous quote, "If you want to destroy a people, deny them their history." That's what happened to Africa. Not by accident, but by design. But the truth is rising again. People are asking questions. They're digging through the ruins and dusting off the pages. They're reconnecting with a legacy that stretches back millennia. And slowly, Africa is remembering. Not just the pain, but the power. Because Africa is the origin of humanity. The earliest bones of humans, Homo sapiens, were found in Africa. It is the cradle of life, not death. The rhythm of the drum, the patterns of the stars, the wisdom of the elders, they all began here. It is a continent that has given the world more than it has taken, and received far less than it deserves. And now, in the 21st century, the world watches as Africa begins to rise again. Its youth are the youngest in the world. Its resources remain vast. Its culture is unmatched. Its history, though buried, is becoming visible once more, and with it comes something powerful, pride. So the next time someone says Jafrica, don't think of begging bowls or broken cities. Think of gold-covered kings, of scrolls and stone cities, of empires that ruled and thinkers who shaped the stars. Think of a continent that once taught the world, and is ready to teach it again. Because Africa's true tragedy was not slavery. It was forgetfulness. And its greatest victory will not just be freedom, but remembrance. But remembering alone is not enough. Because memory without action is like fire without fuel, it fades. Africa must not only know its greatness, it must begin to live it. And to do that, the continent must first understand how that greatness was systematically dismantled. It wasn't just ships and chains. It was textbooks. It was lies. It was foreign religions weaponized against culture. It was European missionaries calling African beliefs witchcraft while presenting themselves as saviors. It was maps that renamed rivers, mountains, and cities, not for accuracy, but for domination. It was the creation of fake borders at the Berlin Conference of 1884, where European powers sat around a table and sliced through African lands with straight lines and zero consent. Imagine strangers dividing your house, your village, your language, your soul, all while telling you it's for your own good. Colonial governments banned traditional languages in schools. They taught that development came only through Europe. They portrayed African governance systems as chaotic and primitive, while looting gold, cocoa, diamonds, coffee, and human labor. In Congo alone, under Belgian rule, over 10 million Africans were killed under King Leopold II's rubber regime. But today, there is no global remembrance for them, no reparations, no accountability. And yet, Africa is still asked to forget, to move on, to be silent. But the silence is breaking. Today, a new generation of Africans is rising, leaders who speak of sovereignty, of pride, of returning control to the continent. In Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré is rejecting neo-colonial control, calling on Africans to fund their own development. In Botswana, natural resources like diamonds are no longer exported raw, they are processed domestically to create jobs, value, and wealth. In Namibia, the president has made it clear raw materials will no longer be a one-way ticket out of Africa. The youth in Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, they are rediscovering Swahili, Igbo, Zulu, Amharic. They are wearing their cultures proudly, not as costumes, but as crowns. And it goes deeper. Across the continent, libraries are uncovering lost manuscripts. Universities are introducing African philosophy, pre-colonial history, African-centered economics. The shift is not just political, it's psychological. It's spiritual. Because the fight for Africa's future begins with understanding its past. A past of mathematicians, architects, sailors, poets, and prophets. A past where the continent was not begging, but building. Not divided, but united. Not ashamed, but admired. So to the world watching, Africa is not your project. It is not your charity case. It is not your museum of misery. It is a continent of ancient fire, and that fire is being reignited. The journey back to greatness will be hard. But for a continent that once taught the world to count the stars, nothing is impossible.